We are recording and streaming on Friday, February 7th, 2025 at 12:18 p.m. Eastern Time. And yes, I'm very nasally and stuffed up and feel awful, but not a really, as I just said to you, if that's the worst of my problems, it's not really a bad problem at all. Mr. Jim Murphy's here from Reach United to talk about the opioid epidemic and what Trump can do in a second term. And I mean, I think this show's been scheduled for a little bit, but as many people I know are saying, it's things are it's so many great things are happening right now that if it was a movie, it would be cheesy. It'd be poor writing. You'd be like, this is so stupid. But I mean, I think border crossings are down 93%. And so obviously that's not the only source of opiates. I mean, I would imagine most prevalent is fentanyl or carfentanil or whatever. Obviously, you still have all the prescription abuse domestically. Also, it's not like heroin can't be made here. So I don't want to entirely say it's the border's problem, but I would imagine that's a large part of it. But what exactly do you envision or hope or pray or whatever? What kind of broad or specific general structure of enforcement to lower, I guess, not just addictions, but I would imagine first deaths and then abuse of opiates?
Well, thanks for giving me this time to share
Sure.
with you. I Look, addiction and the treatment of that disease is an incredibly complex public policy challenge, right? So, to answer your question, my overall view is that we as a society can create a new paradigm of care that leads to higher success rates, moving people from the full throes of that disease when they're in the middle of it to back to a productive life. So um, at Reach United, while we acknowledge that it is complicated and it's a long road and there's a lot of resources and a lot of things that have to change, the fact that there's over 300 people dying a day in this country still from an opioid overdose is just a tragedy that is immeasurable and ongoing and every day. And so we believe that the first order of business is to lower that overdose death rate. Now, there's been some modest downturn in it, um, but it's still, we can't say job well done. So you mentioned President Trump. So yes, border, dealing with the supply, particularly of fentanyl, which the president is focused on, I applaud the president for this. And yes, if there's less supply coming into the country, there should be fewer deaths. But you're right. I mean, it's not a lot of the fentanyl in this country is actually coming in through the mail from China. It's not coming over the border. It's coming through the mail,
Okay.
and it is so cheap. And what's happening is that it's not just people who are really, acutely affected by the disease of addiction, but you have like college students, who are got to write a term paper and pull an all-nighter, and they go and they buy an Adderall to, keep them up, and it's laced. They think it's fine, but it's laced with fentanyl. They take one pill and they're dead. I mean, we're losing, so that's why our short-term priority is to get more overdose reversal medications in the hands of more people and educate people about that. And so we've had a national call to action calling on the opioid abatement councils, and I'll touch on that in a minute, to spend at least 25% of the dollars they allocate this year to these types of initiatives to lower the overdose death rate until the death rate in their geography has gone down by 25%. We think that's job one. So what's happened is there's about $55 billion flowing to states and counties from legal settlements with the manufacturers and marketers and distributors of the opioids that have created this crisis. And so you have this money flowing. And so there are all types of organizations, not for profits, government agencies, private foundations applying for grants to, fund programs and initiatives that would, deal with the downsides here. So that's really, so we feel that that is ground zero for, spending money right, but also that if we can use this opportunity with this, in a sense, newfound money to do some innovative ways of doing things, that success will beget success, and more federal dollars from SAMHSA and other state dollars for mental health and alcohol and drug abuse could get spent, in better ways. So I think the president is focused on fentanyl coming in over the border, which is great.
Hmm.
No, it's going to take more than that. We're focused in on the overdose death rate, which is great. But do we need more long-term beds? Do we need more education? Do we need more counseling? Yeah, it's going to take a lot. But, I think the most important thing is that we wake up and we acknowledge the crisis that's going on right now.
Yeah, and I don't know how accurate this is. It's sometimes I forget. Like I'll see a tweet or a friend will say something, and I'll just register it as fact, and I'm like, wait, I have no idea if that's even remotely accurate. But I thought I saw that something was just canceled by Trump, whatever shipping agreement between Amazon, USPS, and China, to where now, because it used to be, I think a package either had to have a certain weight or a certain volume for it to have to go through customs, but below it, everyday mail didn't have to because it was just too voluminous. I thought, I'm pretty sure I
Yes.
saw that that was canceled, meaning that all of that now does have to go through customs. But
Yeah.
the problem is, like you said, fentanyl is just so cheap to make. You can lose half of it, and it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to the supplier. So that's a pretzel or a puzzle that I don't know how to unwind. But I think it's we don't need to know exactly how it ends. It's I mean these are all better than nothing first steps, which isn't
Yes.
too great of a threshold, but better than nothing. But at the same
I
time, it kind of is because we've been doing nothing.
Well, and what we're doing is not working.
Right.
So yeah, I read the same story. It was like they blocked all shipments from China and Hong Kong, I think, but then 2 days later they turned it back on. I wasn't sure
Okay.
what,
All right.
but I have a strategic partner that has had a great idea, and in fact they've got a pilot program going on in Virginia, which is fascinating. Going back to the mail thing, uh, the currently, if you say that the value of the package that you're sending in is $800 or less, it's not subject to inspection. Okay. So, of course, how many $750 packages do you think are coming from China that are full of fentanyl?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the idea that I'll give you an example of something that we want to get behind, because there's lots of ideas, but what are the things that could really be done? If you did a regression analysis towards where overdose deaths are happening or where the impact of fentanyl is greatest, down to neighborhoods and zip codes. They're using AI and things like that. You could come up instead of I'm making this up that there were like 10 million packages coming into the country every month or every 6 months. But you could say, okay, but based on where they're addressed to, we're going to inspect the package is going to these particular geographies, and it's only 500,000 of and I'll bet you could intercept by using by using data, you could probably capture and cut down a lot of the supply coming in. So again, with Trump dealing with immigration, illegal immigrants bringing into the country, great. Call it, getting Mexico to shut down the drug cartels' labs, great. But if we also could do programs like this to actually capture more of the fentanyl coming in, that's going into the areas where the evidence of it is greatest, things like that, I think. And so we've thought about, we're in conversations to go into DHS, because they would be a great agency in the Trump administration with Kristi Noem to try this in 7 or 8 states. And I think the use of federal dollars or opioid abatement council dollars in those states could go a long way to reduce the overdose death rate if we could get it in a highly targeted way.
Yeah, and then there's the other method is there's everything you can do to button up the border and all that good stuff. And no, you'll never get 100% of it, but that you can't get 100% of anything. So
Oh,
it's that's
well,
those people are doomers and black pillar. You can't do anything. Yeah, but you can get a lot of it. All right, you're not going to stop every like apartment fire, but man, working sprinklers in each floor, you're probably going to curtail like 98% of
sure.
it. So yeah, no, that's not an argument to me. For the opposite, you would. And I don't know how you would enforce. I mean, on the surface, I would. It would be you then go to China or go to Canada and say, if we intercept, so we've curtailed however percentage of it, so we're still, testing whatever this number of packages and this whatever. If we still detect it coming from you, then, here's this tariff. But I feel like those are, and I'm all for those. I mean, enforce it with nukes. I don't care. Like, hey, China, you send another microgram of this stuff. We're nuking Beijing. I understand most people don't like that, but that's also something that like that concept or that idea of being enforced from the White House, and it's unfortunate. That really seems like something that I don't see. I mean, it will happen under Trump, but in our republic, Trump will in 4 years not be there. That's so I don't have much hope for which is sad, but it's in the same way it's sad that it's like, man, Trump really could he sealed up the border in like 3 days. We were just told for 4 years that it's an impossible task. It's depressing, but it's also kind of beyond the scope of this conversation. But it would be, yeah, to enforce things like that on Canada, on Mexico, on China, and say if this stuff happens from y'all, here's this tariff, or here's this cutoff, or here's, military agreement, or here, you know, we do still have a giant stick that we could swing. And we also provide the sticks. We provide the F-35s and the Leopards and the ammo. It could be done, but then it always kind of raises the question of, well, why hasn't it been done before? Well, a lot of very bad people are making a lot of money on it. I don't know where I was going with all that, but could we kind of go back to what you said about reducing overdoses? Is that something like, I don't know, subsidizing Narcan, making Narcan more
Yeah,
available? Is that what is that
here's
about?
yeah, so here's here's I'll give you an example. In Lucas County, Ohio, which is the Toledo area, they did a program uh, where they, what I would call, flooded the zone with supply of Narcan, which is naloxone. Narcan is the
Hmm.
brand name of naloxone. There are other overdose reversal medications, but that's so let's just use that just because it's the most uh, commonly referred to. And so they put it out there in the community, but they not only, but they what we see happening is, and it's not, again, it's not bad, but it could be better. A lot of states are putting the medication out through the traditional sort of networks of distributions, you know, things that they do for health. So it's in community health centers, you know, medical facilities and stuff like that. What they did in Lucas County was not only they got it more out where people are. So here at Reach United, there are two aspects of the initiatives that we think. One is we got to put it where people are. And so that they don't have to go somewhere to get it. So like convenience stores. Uh, in Hawaii, in every bar and restaurant, you can go get a Narcan kit for free. I'm going to reach out to like Uber and Lyft. I'd love for Uber and Lyft drivers to have a box of it in the trunk of their car and everybody knows that it's there. Okay, so number one is we need to complement the efforts that states already have to get this out into the community by putting it where people are. Secondly, we need to put some money behind advertising to deal with the stigma of this and
Hmm.
to raise people's awareness that you really should carry this and that you could save a life and where it is. And so in Fentress County, Tennessee, we've funded a demonstration project where we put vending machines in high traffic areas so you can anonymously get free Narcan. And then Jeff Simmons, all pro tackle Tennessee Titans. We've got him on a billboard, right? I carry it, you should carry it. Let's tackle overdose
Hmm.
now. In other words, so we're spending money to inform the public about the need for this because a lot of people, A, they still don't know that these drugs exist that they could, and B, they think they don't, there's just oh, my Joey, he would never use drugs, but oh, wait a minute. You sure? Well, what about his friends? You know what I mean? So we need to tell more stories about people using this to save a life. And they also don't even know it. Look, one spray, each kit has two doses. And if you see someone not breathing and turning blue from a drug overdose, you literally, one
Mm.
nasal up the nose could literally save a
Yeah.
life. So I would say that so our approach is let's get more of these dollars being spent to put that out there, but let's put it where people are and let's promote it with celebrity sports and entertainment figures to so that so in Lucas County, I told you, Ohio's death rate went up, the nation's death rate went up, but from 2020 to 2022, the death rate in Lucas County went down by 20%. Now that's not, I mean, if we could do, there's over 100,000 people.
No,
If,
it's
if,
amazing.
yeah, it works. It's common sense too, right? But, but from our perspective, that's a one particular case. And if you look at I think it was a 3% drop from 2023 to 2024. Most public health experts attribute that modest drop to a growing use of and awareness of Narcan and these medications.
Yeah, I think there is something about, you know, the stigma in that, yeah, the idea of like, yeah, my little Jimmy wouldn't do drugs. Sure, and that's not always correct. Sometimes little Jimmy is doing drugs, but I look back, I mean, I'm 34. I went to a private Catholic school. We would get drunk when we could, but that was also 2005, 2009. This wasn't an issue then. And I lived in Georgia. We would get weed. You'd smoke it, and, you have a terrible time, but you'd get it where because you're a kid and you're an idiot. You're gonna do it. It is a thing now where it's like it's not 50 years ago where it's like, hey man, you're gonna smoke some pot, you're gonna drink, and you'll get a little wild. Maybe you take LSD at a concert. Like, stay away from needles. Like that kind of used to be enough of a curb for most people to be like, yeah, I'm not going to touch that. Like everyone I knew in college, even the craziest like frat guys, because a needle or like a crack pipe, it's like that's something too far. You just don't do it. But now it's not the same thing. It's like, well, because it's not you fall down this black hole of years of abuse to where you're under a highway with a needle. It's like, no, that's not the case. Something that forever was just, I've never done coke, but a lot of my friends who are doctors and lawyers, yeah, you're 21, you're at a UGA football game, you're drinking 12 hours straight, feel a little bump, and they keep, hey, I get it. You're in your 20s, you're going wild. That's where it is now, though. So it's not just enough
And
to
it's that
go,
person who does the bump and it's laced with
and they have
fentanyl
no
and
fucking idea. Excuse my French, but like that's the thing. And so
correct.
it's not the same as saying like, my little Jimmy would do. No, no, you're probably correct, but I can tell you, your little Tommy did smoke a blunt here and there, and now that's where it is. So it's saturating things that prior to this they didn't saturate. You would
It's no
have a
longer just those people.
correct, and that's kind of the issue. So something like Narcan, I mean, I have a friend who lives, I think he's in DC, very successful guy, and he has Narcan, and like when he first told me that, I was just kind of like, dude, that's dark that you have no. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, I know he drinks, and I know he does coke, but he keeps his life together, doesn't hurt anybody, whatever. I'm like, oh, he doesn't have it because he's like slipping into this dark place. He's just aware that, like, yeah, man, unless you're a billionaire who can afford to synthesize your own drugs, there's a chance. And it's not an issue that you can learn from. That's the other thing. It's like, it's like a cockpit on a fighter jet, or it's like a gun that doesn't rack correctly. It's not something that you learn. You can learn to move your table because you stubbed your toe. There are things though where there is no learning. It's the gun didn't work and you're in a life or death situation and now you're dead. It's the airbag didn't work and now you're dead. This is something that you can't learn from. So others can. So there is something around it though, to where I'm dead. I've been sober for about a year, a little over a year. But like, no, I think if I was still drinking or even just smoking, I mean, I'm up in Maine, it's legal. But I think if I was, I think I would probably be like, it's not a bad idea to probably have that nearby. Even though, if even with my mind, I'm like, I would never do that. I'm like, no, no, you would never consciously go shoot heroin. The problem is the heroin's now knocking on the door in the form of a pot brownie. So if your
You got it.
intention truly was like, yeah, man, we're gonna take a pot brownie and
Look,
go watch the leaves change in the mountains, it's like that's
Maryland,
where it is. Sorry, I know I was just
for
rambling.
example, yeah, it's like AED machines, right?
Yeah.
Maryland just passed a law that wherever there's an AED machine, there's got to be a little box with Narcan in it.
All right.
You know, back when AIDS was a crisis, you couldn't walk out the door without getting in the head with a condom.
Yeah.
I mean, so why don't we have these nasal dispensers everywhere? You
Yeah.
know, that they should be. You know, how many moms every fall or late summer, early fall, when their daughter's going off to college for their first year, say, now, honey, you know, I hope you don't have sex, but if you do, protect yourself. Here's a
Protect your
box of condoms. You
yeah.
know, every parent in my mind should be sending their kid off to college with a box with a Narcan kit or two
I
because
would be horrified if I had a child going to college right now.
but
I'd
wouldn't
be
you
horrified.
yeah, but I mean that's the reality.
And the reality is to deal. I mean, again, having gone to private Catholic school, I know the whole like sure, the real hardliners would be like abstinence and be like, okay, I get that and I get that's your belief and that's all well and good. But there are a lot of people that were, they'd be like, hey, don't do it. But if you're going to use it, like, don't be, it's gonna happen. And in the same way that it was like, it's like you're not gonna drink because you're under 21. But if you're going to, if your buddies pass, I knew that going into college. I went and started in August 2009. You shouldn't drink, but if you're going to and your friend is passed out, move them on their side so that they don't throw up and choke on them. And it was just like we can do the abstinence thing, or we can be realistic and say you probably shouldn't. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say if you're 19 at the University of Georgia with 30,000 beautiful girls on a sunny October day, you're probably going to get a little, I don't know, blackout drunk. So if you are, turn your friend over. And the other thing is, you shouldn't drink, but if you are, call for a ride.
I'll give you another real life example. Dr. Stephen Lloyd, who chairs the Tennessee Opioid Abatement Council, and he's now drug czar for the state of West Virginia. I was with him, and we were talking about uh, uh, people being released from prison. High, a lot of people who end up in prison have addiction issues and drug issues, you know. Now, and a lot of them when they're leaving, they're on probation, right? Do you think even though and even as part of their release thing, would you like some Narcan? What are they going to say? Yes, I want Narcan in front, you know, because they don't want to. No, but you know what? They need to. We need so that's why like vending machines outside of prison, so their boyfriend or girlfriend or family, are they on the way out can anonymously get some in case they use. That's an example where we got to be real about this.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So people who are at high risk are not even accepting Narcan because we're just not doing it the right way. That's just one specific example of where we need to get more strategic about getting this tool in the hands of more people to lower the overdose death rate. We can't counsel a dead person.
No.
You know, we can't, get a job for a dead person. We can't, keep them connected to care. So, as you look at different realities about, but you're right. I mean, it's a different day, it's a different age, and we need to catch up with the realities that China in particular is flooding this country with fentanyl.
Yeah.
And it's killing people. And mostly, by the way, a lot of people I've talked, Sheriff Mark Lamb of Arizona, I'm sure you're familiar with
Hmm.
him. He's recently joined our national advisory board. And, he brought, China takes the long view. And I've talked to some people who think that
Yeah,
part of
100-year marathon. Yeah.
part of their strategy is look at who is what demographic, it's the demographics. This touches everybody, but where is it predominant? Young men, 18 to 29.
It's 100% part of it. I've had on Brigadier General Robert Spalding.
So who do you think would, be our military?
Well, no, exactly. No, that's what you have to understand. Is like this isn't just
They
like
are doing
drugs.
this strategically to wipe
Yeah,
out our fighting force, our young men who would defend the country.
yeah.
So, you know, this is war, and right now, and that's why I think some people who tend to think of it, well, those people who are drug addicts, oh, they're going to die anyway. If they put needles in their arms, they deserve to die. That's not what this is about.
No.
This is about weed. It's about cocaine. It's about everything else. And and I think we need to wake up and acknowledge to have a different way of looking at this crisis. And every life is worth saving.
It's how I always try. Yeah, I've had on General Spalding who wrote Stealth War and forget the other one, both about China and the different ways to fight the United States. That's what I always try to like remind people like this isn't something where it's a product where oh they wouldn't be that dangerous. The company would get sued. No, you have to understand that like you are on the bleeding edge of the eternal millennia long fight for global hegemony. This isn't your drug dealer down the road who it's like, nah, he wouldn't want to ruin his reputation. What you have to understand is there's they're seeing like a homeless guy with a knife, they're seeing like a gangbanger with a gun, then they're seeing special forces. And you look at the special forces, you go, that's death. This is what this is what you have to understand is what you're seeing is the tip of the spear of a nation state and not any nation state, the nation state with the second largest defense budget and the second largest GDP. This is a war for global hegemony. This isn't a little drug on the street. This isn't a terrorist with a car bomb. This is a nuke. So that's what you have to understand is like, yeah, man, this is not you are going up against the same people that the Pentagon is going up. Like you need to, no pun intended, you need to have that sobering realization of yeah, yeah, they want you dead. I'm 34. I'm a 34 fit white guy. I would imagine I'm in the crosshairs of someone who maybe wants to take down the United States. So I'm I'm with you 1,000% on that. And it's also it is just it's a different time. You have to have it around. You have to have dark. It's just what it is. It's we can debate the rights and wrongs of it, sure, but it's also just what it is. You do have to do this. Um, and also it's maybe we could touch on this one on the show because I know I gotta let you go in a bit, but is so like for like me personally in 2014 I lost my older brother to suicide. I kind of spiraled downwards for several years. Luckily I have loving parents and they took me in between the ages of 25 and 30, got therapy, got all well and good, blah blah blah. Started the podcast, been pretty good since then. Was having terrible anxiety in 2023. It hadn't had it in a while. It'd been almost a decade since my brother died. Right after my brother died, I went on clonazepam and then weaned off that and was like, I'm never doing that again. But almost a decade later, it started to just resurface, and this is a combination of resurfacing from my brother as well as a horrible concussion I had. A couple screws came loose, and I was just having panic attacks. And I was going to the ER, and they were giving me Ativan, and it was just they were like, "You can't keep coming in here for this." I'm like, "I know, but like I feel like I'm dying when I have these." Very long story short of, I went on gabapentin, and they were like, this is not a benzo, but they're still withdrawing at the time. It's just having such bad anxiety. I was like, I don't care. Was on it for several months and started to go through withdrawals in like late December 2023, like January 2024. And it got so bad that I drove to my brother's house and he took me to the hospital. And through the grace of God, there was like a rehab center, a very nice one that just happened to have a slot open up that night. And they're like, "Do you want to go there?" And in my mind, I'm 34. I pay for all my own bills. Like this is on my own. And in college, I got into medical school, scored in the top, 0.1% on the MCAT, magna cum. I'm like, I'm not a drug addict. What are you talking about? But I was going through withdrawal, and I mean, I wasn't thinking rationally. And I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And finally, I was just like, I'll go there. And it was a very humbling experience. But I spent a week there, and they wean you off and they talk to you, and then you kind of come out of it, and you're like, man, I maybe I should just like not do gabapentin. And then I was just like, maybe I just shouldn't even drink. And that's why I'm sober for like a year. But my point is, and when I was in there, I thought I'm not a drug addict. And everyone I met in there, nobody had face tattoos. Nobody was coming from federal prison. They were all accountants, firefighters, nurses. And I was like, oh, you're all plus or minus 5 years from me. You all seem as normal as I am. Oh, and it was so bad before I went in there, I was becoming legitimately suicidal. And I just went in there and it wasn't some intervention. It wasn't some like $1 trillion treatment. And it's not like I'm some trust fund kid. They just weaned you off, would talk you through panic attacks. They keep an eye on you 24, take your phone, take all sharp objects. And just 7 days of that. And you just wear big baggy scrubs. And you watch movies in the common room. And it was kind of like going to kindergarten again. And they just talked you through it. And I honestly think that saved my life. And now here I am, a year later, doing podcast, a contributing member of society, happy, loving family member. And to me, it's like, so we have all this, it's like you got to cross to cover the border, tariffs on other countries, all this super high level geopolitical stuff. And then there's like the national efforts through, pharmacology, get Narcan available. But then I also look at like, there is something about just like that also was I didn't need like a treaty with China or Narcan. I legitimately just needed to go sort of like dry out and have a nurse nearby that was like, you're really anxious, but you're not dying. And if you want to tell me you're dying, that's fine. We can sit through that. And you just go through it. And you're there for 7 days, 8 days, and then you're like, I think I'm better. And they're like, you think you're better? I'm like, I think I'm better. And they let you go. And that's all I needed. So that's like enough. And that's kind of what I try to do through the podcast. It's like I can't control China or Narcan or any of that. What I can say is like, man, if you got a problem and you're going through withdrawals and it's horrifying and benzos or alcohol, it's the worst withdrawals ever. Don't be stupid. Don't turn to pills. Don't go tell someone you love that you need help. It's a humbling, shitty experience. It's kind of embarrassing. It's gonna cost you a couple bucks, but and guess what? If you don't have insurance, they'll just they won't charge you. Don't don't ruin your life. And so that's kind of like the last one I want to touch on before we finish this up is
Well,
yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah,
And
I got you.
listen, it's a disease. You know, if you got a kidney stone, there's no stigma about going to get
No.
help with kidney stone. Well, guess what? Panic attacks, anxiety, depression, addiction are diseases,
Oh yeah. No,
and
it's
they can be
necessary.
treated.
Yeah.
And so I just am so happy that you're healthy and that you're where you are in life. But I commend you for having the courage to say, I need help,
And
because that's what got you there.
absolutely.
And we need, the most powerful people that I work with are the parents who have lost someone to addiction.
Absolutely.
And they are like, and they are, a lot of them feel like people will judge them, like they must have been bad parents or
Yeah.
something. But they're out here. If you go to our website, www.thereachteam.com, you'll see an introductory video where we got 5 families that talk about losing their child. And this one mom says, we need to tell our story.
Yeah. No, you
Because,
do.
like you were saying, when you went there, it isn't those people, it's all of us. It's rural, it's urban, it's suburban, it's black, it's white, it's brown, it's young, it's old, it's socioeconomic. We
Yeah.
are all suffering from this crisis. And the sooner we just give each other some grace, and more people like yourself go get help and talk about the fact that you got help and it's okay. It makes it easier for the next person to go down that driveway and say, hey, I'm going here because I don't want to live like this.
Hmm.
And there's things that can be done. And so I'm just so thank you for what you're doing
Absolutely, dude.
to because you don't know how many people you can help, but you
Absolutely.
do help people.
And so when we were talking earlier about like, there are things you can't learn from, you just die, or like you said, you can't rehabilitate a dead person. What you can do though is you can make their death not be in vain. I think if I hadn't lost a brother to suicide, I probably wouldn't have taken it as seriously. I would have taken it, but it was just like, hey, I know this goes to a very dark, the worst place, suicide. And I was like, this isn't like a little fire I can play with. I'm like this. I know where this goes, and it was extremely humbling. But I went through it, and I'm hunky dory. Just now I'm bitching about a sore throat. But it's like it's a great problem to have in comparison to this time last year. So that's what I'd also say is like get help, and but those who like we have lost, don't make their death in vain.
Precisely.
Learn
And
from
it's somebody else's problem until it happens to you.
That's the other thing is I remember when
You know
my
what I mean? So, if more of us can learn to dive into this before it happens to us, that's what I'm trying to do in terms of our communication, our education, and our trying to make the public more aware of this. This is closer to you than you think it is.
hmm I remember right when my brother died, I remember my dad he said like this is our turn, meaning this stuff happens to people every day,
Right.
and I just had a friend a couple months ago who lost his brother. So, I mean, literally like 3 months ago. In my mind, I called him. I told him I was like, "Hey, the thing happened to you on a random Tuesday, and it just comes." And so that's what I'd say. It's like, yeah, it is. It's coming to you. But I know I gotta let you run, so I'm gonna let you go. But I'd love to have you back on here, dude. That was great, and I think you guys are doing great work, and I'd love to help in any way I can, even if it's just using my little platform to
Of
get the word
course,
out.
listen, don't sell yourself short. This is incremental and we all have to do. I'd be delighted to come back. We share the same, desire to help people. And so I appreciate this opportunity and you let me know when you want to do it again and I'll make time.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And guys, if you're listening, you can go in the description. The link is in the description, so you can go visit it. And Mr. Jim Murphy, thank you so much for your time, sir. Guys.